Ladies and gentlemen, this is part two to syncretism, a means and a method to define chem, chemet, and chemet to you. So right now, I'm going to start from page 6. Let's go page 5. Let's go back a little bit. Let's go back a little bit to page 5. Right. Until syncretism and the context examination is applied, this analysis asserts that Chem is a black king in his black animal form, and that Kemet is a sacred people in the black animal form. At the minimum, the king and his people are represented as black bulls and cattle. What has to be ruled out is that they are not black. Further, in this form, they are not simply black, but a sacred black. It is also safe to infer that in this form they may be set apart from their neighbors, not in terms of race, which is a recent social construct in the historical context, but in lineage. At any rate, Kemet's people are equivalent to Kemet's cattle in various hieroglyphic variations in which only the determinatives differ. As you see here, you see Kemet. This is the word for people, Remech. Then you have Kemet here, and this is the determinative for cattle. An acceptable question would be, in what text did the people of Kemet civilization say directly that they were cattle to make the proposed relationship of cattle and people? The first case in the Westcott Papyrus story of Dedi, the magician. In this story, the text says the following. I'm not going to butcher it with all of this. This is the transliteration. I'm not going to butcher it. So let me just go to the English. Said Jedi, but not to a human being, O king, my lord. Surely it is not permitted to do such a thing to the noble cattle. The second case is the various statements in the pyramid text and other religious books of Kemet, the civilization, Kemet civilization, that shows syncretism relationships between the people and their cult beliefs, such as the statement that the king is a black ram, son of a black sheep. The third case is King Keti's instructions to his heir, Merikari, says, I'm not going to bother to read the transliteration to butcher it. Provide for men the cattle of God, for he made heaven and earth at their desire. He suppressed the greed of the waters. He gave breath of life to their noses, for they are likeness of him, which issued from his flesh. He shines in the sky for the benefit of their hearts. He has made herbs, cattle, and fish to nourish them. This statement from the Westcott Papyrus, humans are the noble cattle. The Unas Papyrus, the king is the black ram born of the black sheep, and King Keti puts in perspective the relationship of men and cattle, calling them the cattle of God, Hen Remech, Awat, Net, Neta. Dr. Jacob Carruthers instructs us that in ancient Kemetic civilization, the text drama is a mode of inquiry. And of course, we have the two bulls here fighting. I would not attempt to read this metadata to the following plate. It's from Flanders Petrie at Atribus. It comes from the tomb of Mary II, North Wall. It is part of the tombs in Hagaresh in the Kemwer, Great Black Bull Gnome. The text is rendered as Day of Victory of a Bull of the Black Cattle. In this tomb is the drama that Dr. Carruthers instructs us to look for. The tomb drawing was rendered in the first intermediate period where ancient Kemet was in disarray from a long reign from the Nasut Bidi Pepi II and plagued by famine. It could be described as a period of strong bulls looking to inherit the leadership. In this context, was the rendered text about the cattle? What was the rendered text about the cattle, or was this about bulls charging each other for leadership? We don't have to guess. The following description of the scene helps us. The meaning of the bullfight scene with the tomb decoration program can be found in contemporary religious funerary texts. In a funerary context, Kabul not only identifies the bulls entangled in the fight, as has already been seen, but also in the epitaph of deities, that the deceased himself, after having been identified with Asar, the context for the use of the epitaph refers to the power of defeating the enemies and getting to eat the right food. The 5 rations of the temple of Heliopolis to procreate, and thus becoming the foremost of these in the netherworld. In the Black American tradition of Christianity, thousands of sermons would have equated this with people and their condition looking for a leader. If we could look for syncretism, we see that the strong will comes from a sacred people. In this context, the sacred people are represented by sacred black cattle, Kemet. Again, biblical tradition has its people looking for saviors. Hopefully, one can see the drama to help understand why would the ancient people of Kemet be merely talking about cattle when they are in a fight for their life. The problem of Kemetiu. The meaning of the grapheme and its transliteration has been a problem for those arguing in the relationship for those arguing its relationship to ancient Egypt. My assessment is that if the concept was viewed with syncretism and the context of where it is used, there would be no argument. Kemetiu will resolve itself to sacred black cattle at the minimum and to sacred black people of ancient Egypt. Here is the key discussion and argument of Dr. Diop, Mr. Abdullah, and Dr. Sunaran at the UNESCO Symposium. A grammatical, and I quote, a grammatical and semantic debate took place between Professor Diop on the radical which he reads Kemet derives from Kem black and considers to be a collective noun meaning blacks, i.e. Negroes, and Professor Abdel Gadar M. Abdullah, who adopts the accepted reading of it as Kemetiu and translation with Egyptians, a plural of Kemeti, Egyptian. The Nisba form from Kemet, Blackland, i.e. Egypt, the latter reading and translation were affirmed by Professor Sunaran. The Nisbi adjective the issue is resolved if Kemetiu is related to black cattle, and this is the sacred animal form of the people. When other texts are analyzed, the syncretism is automatically accepted. This is illustrated in the following coffin text dealing with the Nisbi of sacred cattle belonging to Hawiteru. Here is the world of Middle Kingdom, Egypt, chapter, scribes, translating CT 710. Which I'm not gonna attempt once again to read the transliteration of butchery. Or Hathor under her sycamores, the sacred cattle I will eat of Seshnu, living fowl and fish, being in the suite of Hathor, and of secret things which are on the ground, I traverse and strive. Through the circuit I traverse the firmament, I climb the sunlight in the suite of Hathor. And this would be from, I guess, rubric. Here are Tenetiu. Here Tenetiu are both people and in their animal form as sacred cattle. I guess that means Kemetiu. That's probably a typo. If we look at the context of Kemetiu, we will instantly see that they are sacred black cattle of Happy slash Apus and represent as human animal forms. Returning to Kemetiu and looking at it in its most authoritative context, the pyramid text, the line was written from well-noted Egyptologist Kurt Seif. Aha, Ket, Henati, Kemet, Wahep, Is. You will stand before the inhabitants of Egypt like Apis. Let's go down, let's go down, let's go down. In context and keeping syncretism in mind, the Kemetiu is in front of the black bull, Hap or Apis. What Kemetiu relates to can be contrast to Tenetiu. Tenetiu means those of the sacred cattle, in contrast to Hathor. So Kemetiu can be seen as those of the sacred black cattle relationship to Hep or Apis. Thus, the translator puts inhabitants of Egypt in its Nuit glyph. The verse clearly says the city of Kemetiu. Other translators have put in a three bus. However, the name for Hepaturi Ib is not rendered nor are there any attestations of the own kingdom for this temple complex. This early sentence fragment found in tomb UG, I've translated it as stating, "You royal fellows of Happy." Happy is the black bull. Hep is the black bull apus. We know that Hep bull is sacred and black from later writings and art. The significance of Hep/Apus is paramount to the syncretism of the king and its cattle ritual counterpart. I will conclude the following statement by Edward P. Butler from his website to show the syncretism concerning the king. The creator god Ptah and the earth god Osiris. In one of the ascension spells of the pyramid text utterance 539, the king says, "My phallus is Apus. I will ascend and rise up to the sky." Funerary stele show the Apus bull carrying the mummy of the deceased on his back in spell 31 of the coffin text. The deceased is granted the boon of seeing the birth of the Apis bull in the briars of the dappled cattle. Faulkner, 1973, page 20. Identification with Apis in the netherworld seems to express the idea of flourishing. Thus, in spell 162, the east wind opens a path for the deceased into a field where she or he flourishes, like the condition of Apis at Seth, page 140. Seth being associated with vigor in spell 203. Spell 189 in the Book of the Dead, con- which is concerned with providing appropriate nourishment in the spirit world. Seth and Apis apparently reap and thresh grain for the deceased consumption. In spell 204, similarly concerned with spiritual nourishment, the deceased affirms, "I am Apis who is in the sky, long of horns, fair-sighted, far-striding," page 166. Alluding to the bull's auricular prescience, the milk which is imbibed by Apis from his mother is a purifying substance. In CT 21, Budge 169. The Apis bull is mentioned along with Minervis, another sacred bull, in the 25th instruction of the Demotic Papyrus in Singer, a text of ethical instruction in a chapter against retaliation. The author says that Apis and Minervis abide at the window of Pharaoh forever. They would do good to him who would listen to these words, i.e., they will reward the person who knows better than to seek retaliation. Lichcomb, Volume 3, page 213. The following drawing of Jean-Francois Champollion shows in art some aspects of syncretism. In addition, Netcher's principles of the deified in humans had animal parts. The Ka soul, the grapheme for Ka is, you see here, the two hands raised, and another is the two hands raised with the bull. The human arms are the horns of the bull. The Ba grapheme Heka is effective action once called the magic. The glyph you see here, the human hands as bull horns and people are related. Again, returning to Kemetiu, here is another example offering to resolve the meaning of Kemetiu, which is the stele of ruddy canoe and the translation of Mary Litchcomb. And in this dissertation entitled Topic Focus, Articulation and Biographical Inscriptions and the Letters of the Middle Kingdom, Dynasties 11 and 12, by Dr. Renata Languafora, she renders this as, "I don't want to read the consideration to butcher it. Then she placed me, and then there are foremost inside the great royal palace. I spent a long period of time, years, then obviously something that looks like something that they can't read. There never came a bad thing therein. I was a knower of things." Langophora. Here, she does not translate Kemetiu. Return to Mariam Litchcomb's ancient Egyptian autobiographies, chiefly of the Middle Kingdom, a study and an anthology. She translates then places me at Dundera in her mother's 12 great 12 great cattle farm, rich in records of furthermost enterprise, the greatest estate of Upper Egypt. I have spent a long time there, a span of many years, without there being a fault of mine, for my competence was great. Miriam Lipscomb does not translate Commentary to Black Carol Farm, but this is what the context says. So since I'm on page 10, I'm going to stop here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a blessed night, evening, morning, or whatever time of day it is where you are.